Alors, je vois qui est son gouverneur, mais il n'est pas là aujourd'hui. Alors, sur 3, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so my caravan tour just wants to follow me into the town.
Can you get a close-up of her feet, just her feet? I'm on video right now.
She's figuring it out.
Should I go real quick? No.
She's got it.
I know it is.
Are you ready? She's just wetter than soft.
Who threw the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder? Nobody spoke, so he shouted all the louder. It's an Irish trick, that's true. I can lick them, make the through the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder. Well, Mrs. Murphy threw a party about a week ago. Everyone was there, oh the Murphys, they're not slow. They treated us like gentlemen, we tried to do the same. If only for what happened, well it was an awful shame. When Mrs. Murphy came to dish the chowder out, she fainted on the spot. She found a pair of overalls at the bottom of the pot. Tim Nolan, he got rippin' mad, his eyes were bulging out. He jumped up on the piano and loudly he did shout. Who threw the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder? Nobody spoke, so he shouted all the louder. It's an Irish trick, that's true. I can lick them, make the through the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder. They dished the pans from out the pot and laid them on the floor. Each man swore upon his life he'd ne'er seen them before. They were plastered up with mortar and had patches on the knees. They'd seen their share of ups and downs, as we could plainly see. But when Mrs. Murphy, she came to, she began to cry and pout. She'd washed them in the pot that day and forgot to take them out. Tim Nolan, he excused himself for what he'd said that night. Then we put music to the words and sang with all our might. Who threw the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder? Nobody spoke, so we shouted all the louder. It's an Irish trick, that's true. I licked the mick the through the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder. Oh, who threw the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder? Nobody spoke, so we shouted all the louder. It's an Irish trick, that's true. I licked the mick the through the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder. The overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder. peaceful man, if you know what I mean. The cops picked up the pieces after Clancy left the scene. He never looked for trouble, that's a fact you can assume. But nevertheless, when trouble did press, Clancy lured the boom. Oh, the Clancy, oh, the Clancy. Whenever they got his Irish up, a Clancy lured the boom. Boom, 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 boom. Well, there he was, a fighting man, he thought that he was tough. He strutted around the neighborhood, a-shooting off his guff. He picked a fight with Clancy, then and there he sealed his doom. Before you could shout, "Oh, Larry, look out!" Clancy lured the boom. Oh, the Clancy, oh, the Clancy. Whenever they got his Irish up, a Clancy lured the boom. Boom, 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 boom. Clancy left the barber shop with tonic on his hair. He went into the pool room and he met O'Reilly there. O'Reilly said, "For goodness sake, I think I smell perfume." Before you could stack your